At the end of All Tomorrows, we're informed that the United Galaxies, of which the human-derived Asteromorph civilization was a prominent member, had re-encountered and subdued the Q. By this point, it seems that the Asteromorphs had overtaken the Q in many ways, in a technological sense, as well as in sheer number as well, and they are said to have spread themselves far and wide across the galaxy and had also formed an alliance with a completely alien and non-human derived species known as the Amphicephali. The fact that they had managed to subdue the Q is interesting because it means that a reign of terror that had lasted close to 2 billion years, an absolutely unimaginable amount of time, had come to an end. We aren't provided with any detail about the Q's ultimate fate, however, and so it's left to the imagination of the reader to decide what happened to them in the end, at the hands of the Asteromorphs and the rest of the new empire. Now in this video we'll just be taking a look at a few of the ways it could have gone. There are some theories out there about the Q actually being future humans themselves who had mastered time travel, which many people agree with, and there is also my cringy early video, The Q Explained, in which I theorised that the Q may have been imprisoned for their crimes against humanity, but ultimately managed to escape their bondage and then wipe out the Asteromorphs and the rest of the Empire for good, which very few people agree with. In this video, however, we'll be keeping things simple and going with a linear timeline which is comprised only of the events that we know definitely happened, up to the point of the Empire having subdued the Q. So the Q were defeated. What happened next? What happened to the Q? What did the Asteromorphs decide to do with them? Some say that the Asteromorphs killed every single one of them, and that the Q as a species were made extinct. Sure, the Empire had managed to defeat them and take away their power, but they were likely too dangerous to be allowed to live. The Asteromorphs had previously defeated the Machine Empire, made up of varying forms of gravital, and rather than destroy every single one of them, they decided to keep some of them around and reprogram them. They saw them as being too useful to get rid of completely, as they would make excellent tools of the Empire. A living machine could go places and do things that an organic, even one as advanced as an astromorph, could not. So the so-called new machines were integrated into the Empire, albeit as citizens lower down on the ladder than the organic members. The Q, however, were not machines, unlike the gravital. They were also now inferior to the Astros in a technological sense, meaning that they wouldn't have any really useful knowledge to impart. They, like the Asteromorphs and the Amphicephali, were organic, and so not useful as tools like the new machines. What use would the Q be to the Empire? The most likely answer is they would be of no use whatsoever. All they were was an extremely dangerous enemy, now powerless, but too dangerous to be allowed to live. This would mean that they probably just decided to put the Q down for good, thus bringing to an end the species' time in existence. The second way it could have gone would be that if the Empire was a democratic one, they may have put the Q on trial for their crimes against humanity. Now, in my opinion, this is unlikely. Everything that was done to the Star People was done hundreds of millions of years before, and unless the Q have an extraordinarily long lifetime, then not a single Q individual at the time of their subjugation would have had anything to do with those events. That would be like putting a pigeon on trial today because its dinosaur ancestors killed other kinds of dinosaurs all those millions of years ago. Completely asinine. But let us not forget that for all of their evolution, the Asteromorphs are still descended from humans, and you should never underestimate the level of bureaucratic idiocy that humans are capable of, not to mention the strong desire to punish members of groups for things that either other members of their group have done or that their distant ancestors did. History is rife with this stuff. And so, while I think it's unlikely that the Asteromorphs would put the Q on trial for what their species had done in the past, it still seems like something of a possibility because humans love nonsense, though I would hope that the Astros had eventually evolved beyond that tendency. And if the result of their trial is a verdict of guilty, which of course it would be, then the Q would have been sentenced to death anyway. The third way that things could have played out was that the Asteromorphs decided to inflict on the Q what had been done to their human ancestors all those tens of millions of years ago, and genetically modify them into new forms. This seems to be a popular line of thinking among the online All Tomorrows fandom, but to be perfectly honest, and this may upset or enrage some people, I disagree with this. I actually don't think that the Asteromorphs would have done this to the Q at all. My reasoning for this is thus. When the Q modified humanity, they did it for a variety of nutty religious reasons. They believed that they were gods and the only ones who had the divine right to change worlds and organic species. The Asteromorphs, on the other hand, don't hold any insane beliefs like the Q did, or at least least there's no indication of this anywhere in the book. So if the Astros did genetically modify the Q after they'd managed to subdue them, the only reason for this would be to get revenge on them for stuff that happened millions and millions of years ago. This just seems really petty to me. The Asteromorphs are godlike themselves and would have long since achieved a level of enlightenment that could never be achieved by any lesser evolved human forms. Why would such an advanced species made up of gods resort to petty measures like this? Like, you did it to us, now we'll do it to you. The whole thing just seems really small-minded to me, and it seems like these would be the actions of a much less mature species. And that's why I disagree with the idea that the Q would have been modified after they'd been captured. I really don't think the Asteromorphs would reduce themselves to such childish tit-for-tat. I think that if the Q were captured and remained in the Asteromorphs' custody, that the Astros would probably have made the simple, cold, logical decision to quickly kill them off and then move on to more important things. But what do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Sound off in the comments section and let me know what you think. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you next time.